Welcome to the WanderLearn show. I'm your host, Tapon. In this episode, I'm going to be interviewing Johnny Ward, who will recount a time when he got arrested when he was trying to cross a border from Cote D'Ivoire to Liberia during the Ebola crisis. Very funny, and just shows his pugnaciousness. He's going to need all that pugnaciousness today because he is on Mount Everest right now, somewhere around Camp 3, probably on May 15th, which is today when we're recording. I'm guessing that he's going to be just hitting the South Col, which is the part between the Lhotse Mountain and Mount Everest. It's the col, or in other words, the pass, and that's where often people camp right before their big summit push. There's a way to camp higher than that, but I don't think he's going to do that. He's just going to go straight from the col. Col is about a place that's about the size of a football field, or a little bit bigger than that. And it's extremely windy, very cold at that altitude. You're right around 8,000 meters or so, I believe. And now, Johnny Ward. You were arrested for paying a smuggler to take you from Liberia to Ivory Coast during the Ebola pandemic. Tell us that story.
Oh, God. It was during my Cape Town to Casablanca. So I was going up through the west coast, right? And you know that west...
It's horrendous.
Guinea...
Yeah. It's tough.
Liberia, Sierra Leone. It's
tough visas as well as tough roads, a lot of mud.
Wow, it was tough. So I was in Ivory Coast for a month, which I was speaking to you about last night, actually.
And you loved it.
And I loved it because...
It's your favorite country in Africa.
Certainly in West Africa.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard, it's so brutal to travel there in Central and West Africa that when you get to Ivory Coast and Abidjan, you can sit in a pub.
It's nice.
Drink a pint, watch the Liverpool game.
Yeah.
It's
like an oasis in this kind
exactly.
of...
Dakar is a little bit like that too. It's
right.
And then everything in between is quite tough.
Right. That's so true.
Yeah. So I liked it. And then anyway, I took a bus from Abidjan to the western border with Liberia, which should be 10 hours. Often that turns into 20 hours, as you know, and even in Ivory Coast. So... And in the west of Ivory Coast, it's quite sketchy. There's a lot of bandits. It's kind of lawless. It's like the pocket of Ivory Coast. It's not so nice, Cote d'Ivoire. Anyway, so it took me 2 days on a bus to get to the Liberian Ivory Coast border. And it was shit, as you know, like 2 days in a bus, but okay, whatever. And it's actually quite beautiful scenery. So then, when I got there, the Ebola crisis was just at the tail end, and it just flared up again. So they closed...
This is 2014? Roughly.
Was it? Yeah, roughly, maybe 15, 16,
okay,
around that time.
Okay,
I can't actually remember. Easy to check, but anyway, roughly around that time. And just as I got there, they closed the border, and I just spent 2 days on a bus to get there, on like an African bus, as you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not accepting this. I'm getting across that border because the alternative is 2 days back.
Sure. And then you eventually got to get there anyway.
Yeah. And I'll have to fly, and it'll cost a fortune. And blah, blah.
Right.
African flights.
Yeah. African flights are expensive.
Taking a 1 hour flight from one African country to another is the same as me flying from Europe to Asia.
Well, right. And not only that, but sometimes it's cheaper. Let's say if you want to go to 2 neighboring countries, sometimes it's cheaper to fly to Paris and then fly to the neighboring country.
More often than not. Yeah. So I wasn't facing that. So then I was making a bit of a kerfuffle in this town called Ma.
Yeah, I've been there.
Okay, yeah. And I was like, and the guy.
It's near the tallest mountain of Cote d'Ivoire, and by the way, trivia fact: it's the tallest mountain of Cote d'Ivoire is the same tallest mountain as Guinea.
Okay.
And they share the same summit.
And it's a beautiful town, actually.
Yeah.
We climbed a few.
It's pleasant.
Yeah, climbed a few mountains there too, and anyway, I found a guy who would smuggle me across for $200 or whatever.
Smuggle a white guy across.
Yeah, and it's through the jungle.
It's like you kind of stand out. It's easy to smuggle a black guy through sub-Saharan Africa, but smuggle a white guy, you kind of sit out because what happens is a lot of them will gossip. And there goes the white guy, and then before you know it, the next village will know that you're coming before you any sign.
Well, that's what happened. So, I paid the guy.
Have I been to Africa or what?
I paid the guy, and I jumped on the back of his motorbike with my backpack, and it was quite long. The border crossing is the official border post is whatever, an hour away, but we go deep through the jungle, 2-3 hours on this motorbike off road. And I get to the border crossing, he's like, don't worry, we'll get across. And there was a huge they start shouting at each other, this is common, and the military are there. And I'm like, gosh. He's like, no, it's going to be okay. And I'm like, if he knows him, it will be okay. But if he doesn't know him, and he's trying to give the guy a cut of what I'm giving him, it's not going to be great. Anyway, they send a guy, and I get arrested, and I get taken back on a police bike, and then the police and then taken into the cells. And then I got stuck in the cell for the day, and they eventually, after maybe 4 or 5 hours, they let me out. what are they going to do with me? Keep
Right,
me locked
right.
up in the middle. And they said, okay, you got.
But did they let you out on the correct side?
I was back in Man.
Oh fuck!
And I come out of, anyway, I was like, I'm so sorry. I've been trying to be humble. If you're
Yeah,
humble,
of course.
If you're humble, you get.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm so sorry. And they thought I was going back to Abidjan, right? But as soon as I got out of the station, some guy comes up to me. He's like, did you just try to smuggle yourself across the border? And I was like, yeah. He's like, that idiot took you to the wrong smuggling point. I'll take you to a different smuggle point. For $200, I'll take you to another board. I was like, okay, then let's do it.
$200. Wow, that's a lot of money.
I know,
for
it's a lot. Yeah, but I was everything was hinging on this, and the border was closed.
Yeah.
So then I did it again.
But hold on. Once you're there, also, you're going to have problems getting out once you're on the other side. In other words, because you don't have a valid stamp. Anyway, continue.
Yeah. So then I did it again and get taken even deeper into the jungle, another 2-3 hours into the jungle. And when I get there, there's a huge kerfuffle again. And who do I see walk out of the little military checkpoint?
No.
One of the guys from the police station who had seen me in the cell.
No.
Fuck. And then that was just shut down, and they were furious with the guy for bringing me there. And I got brought back to this. Got brought back to Man, put in the same cell again. It's late afternoon now. I'm just like, and anyway, they went and it was a Saturday, and they went and got the chief of police. I was like, this is actually serious. I know I'm not going to end up dying in a cell in Ivory Coast, but it's also not great either.
Sure. And it's expensive.
Yeah,
time-consuming.
and it is disrespectful. What I've done is disrespectful. They told me to piss off, and I've gone and done the same thing again. So it's not cool, actually.
Right.
And the chief of police came, and he summoned me into his office.
And by the way, he's speaking to you in French.
My bad French and his bad English.
Okay.
And he was furious, basically. Yeah. And I asked him, could I use his computer? He's sitting in front of his desk, and he was a bit weird about it, but the language was a bit of a breakdown in communication. He kind of let me usher beside him, and I brought up my blog, and I was like, look, I'm really sorry, this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to visit every country. No one from Ireland's ever done it, and I'm so sorry, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, and I know it's a difficult time with Ebola. And he was like, actually really nice. He's like, I understand, please also understand the border's closed for a reason. And he was really cool about it, and he let me out of the cell. But this time he gave me a police escort back to Man bus station, and bought the ticket and put me on the bus for the 2-day bus back to Abidjan.
To Abidjan.
To Abidjan, yeah. And then anyway, there's a whole other story that ended up getting hijacked by bandits. That bus.
What?
And we ended up
the bus that you were on, that they put you on.
But which is not their fault. But
did you lose money?
You lost some money. It just was a very sketchy couple of days. It was the worst 2 days of my life, actually. It was pretty rough.
I thought the worst 2 days of your life was on that boat. That rowboat.
And then followed by the second worst 2 days, 2 more days, and 2 more days, and 2 more days. Yeah, it was rough.
So how the fuck did you eventually get to...
I try not to fly that much, right?
Sure.
I want to do
overland.
same
here.
But equally, I'm not married to that. So I got back to Abidjan, and I flew from Abidjan to Liberia's Freetown, is it? What's the capital of Liberia? Is it Freetown?
No, Monrovia.
Oh, Monrovia, yeah. So and I flew to Monrovia, and it cost bloody $550 or whatever for the hour and 15 minutes that it took, which is what I was trying to avoid. But anyway, from then I could continue.
God, what a...
And that ends this episode of the WanderLearn podcast, where we explore travel, technology, and transformation. If you'd like to see the show notes with links to what we've talked about, go to wanderlearn.com and click on this episode. If you'd like to connect with me, just remember Tapon. That's my first initial and my last name. Tapon is always my social media username. My website is ftapon.com. Do you want to leave me an anonymous voicemail where you can make a comment or ask a question? Then go to speakpipe.com/ftapon. Furthermore, if you'd like to get rewarded for supporting my projects, then go to patreon.com/ftapon. That's where you can pick up some remarkable rewards for as little as $2 a month. Now, 5 quick favors. Number 1, subscribe to the WanderLearn podcast. 2, download it. 3, share it. 4, review it. And 5, sign up for my newsletter at wanderlearn.com. Our theme music was composed by Eric Stratman. This is Francis Tapon, encouraging you to wander and learn.